In this country, the United States of America, we believe, or at least we're supposed to believe, that rights come from God, not from government. That isn't just a poetic phrase from a dusty old document. That's the bedrock principle of the American idea. You don't get your rights from a president. You don't get them from Congress. You don't get them from the courts or from any other institution of man. They don't hand down liberty like favors from a throne. You are born with them. Your rights were breathed into your soul by your Creator, not conferred by any legislature or decree. That's what the founders meant when they declared in 1776 that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, rights that no king, no parliament, no judge, and no bureaucrat has the power to give or take away. But let's be clear, those rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, aren't licenses for lawlessness. They don't give us permission to do whatever we want, whenever we want, with no regard for others. That's not liberty, that's chaos. And chaos is the doorway to tyranny. That's why the Apostle Paul wrote, "All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient." In other words, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Real liberty, the kind the founders fought and died for, isn't a free-for-all. It's not about unbridled appetite or reckless abandon. It's about self-government. It's about choosing to do what's right, not because you're forced to, but because you're free to. That's what we call ordered liberty. And that, my friends, is the true foundation of Americanism. You see, when the founders talked about liberty, they weren't talking about anarchy, where each man is a law unto himself. And they certainly weren't talking about mob rule, where rights are voted away by majority whim. They were talking about a system of liberty rooted in something higher, in the eternal, unchanging truths of natural law given by God Himself. Natural law tells us that there's a difference between right and wrong, between justice and injustice, and that truth exists whether government recognizes it or not. Human law, the kind written down in constitutions and statutes, is only legitimate when it reflects and respects natural law. That's why government exists, not to bestow rights, but to secure them. That's the exact language used in the Declaration of Independence, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Government's purpose isn't to control you, monitor you, tax you into submission, or regulate your life down to the size of your soda. Government exists for one reason, and one reason only: to protect the rights you already have from God. Now, here's the tension, the balance that makes a constitutional republic possible. You are free, but your freedom stops where someone else's begins. You have the right to swing your fist, but not hit your neighbor's nose. You have the right to speak freely, but not to silence someone else's speech with violence. That careful boundary, that moral restraint, that's the difference between a republic and a riot. Because without virtue, freedom becomes a weapon. Without truth, democracy becomes a mob. And without law grounded in God's law, government becomes a god unto itself. The founders knew this. That's why they tethered liberty to virtue and government to law. They understood that a free people must be a moral people, or their freedom won't last a generation. So let's not confuse liberty with libertinism. Let's not confuse freedom with foolishness. And let's never forget the truth that formed this nation. Rights come from God. Government exists to protect them, and liberty lives only where virtue rules.